Hey, welcome to episode number 138 of Decentralized Revolution. It is a podcast from the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus and Mises PAC. I'm Aaron. I'm your host, and it's been a long time. My twin boys were born like 13 months ago, and life has been great, but it's been very busy. I know we did one podcast with Angela a few months ago to kind of catch up, but I wanted to get back into this a little quicker than I did, but I've cleared my schedule and we're going to be going, try to go every week for the foreseeable future. And with me to do that, I needed some help. Like a lot of things, a lot of people schedules just didn't work out. Liam McCullum, who, co-hosted, when I couldn't do some of these in the past, and who has his own great podcast. He has school and life, and hopefully he'll be joining us or one of us from time to time going forward. We've got a couple of other people who might be able to do it. But I was really lucky to Josiah, who's on our board, said, "Hey, why don't you ask Nate?" And I was like, "Yeah, why don't I?" And he's got a great podcast. He's the co-host of called Good Morning Liberty. He's also from Tennessee, and I didn't think he would have the inclination to want to do this, but he did. And we've been really excited about some of the plans we're making. So Nate, welcome aboard. I'm glad to have you here, and just tell people a little bit about you, your podcast, your partner on the podcast, and how you found your way to this thing called the Mises Caucus and libertarianism and all that.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I mean, I'm just really honored that you guys would ask for me to come and do this. I haven't been involved with the party for a long time. I've been doing libertarianism for a little bit now, but even I was late to the game there. I didn't even had never really thought about it or heard about it until like the 2012 presidential election. And of course, I was paying a lot of attention to Ron Paul back then, and still do. And so I think the Mises Caucus thing, I was trying to think back to when that happened, and I'm pretty sure we had Josiah Baker, who and
Yep.
everyone listening should know. Great guy. And he, I believe, brought on Michael Heiss on our show and explained sort of the entire thinking behind the Mises Caucus. And I still didn't get super involved at that time. By not getting super involved, I mean I didn't get involved at all at that time, but I was very interested. Of course, when you hear Michael talking strategy about stuff, you can't help but get pumped up about it because he's so good at.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then Josiah kept talking to us. We've been hanging out with him, and we got involved with the Libertarian Party of Tennessee, and eventually he just talked me into it, and the rest is history. I'm just happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, yeah, I really do appreciate it. And one thing that's been fun for me, it's been more than 5 years, 6 maybe, since I got involved with the Mises Caucus, and pretty soon after I expressed interest, Mike wanted me to be on the board. And of course, I ended up being chairman for a little while after Mike stepped down. And if you haven't heard the news, Angela is now chair of the Mises Caucus. I begged her to come back, and others begged her to come back to the board as chair, and she's doing a great job as always. And we're going to be kind of talking about kind of what she's done and what we're doing as the caucus going forward a little bit here in regard to the main topic that we're talking about, which is the Trump and Israel and Iran stuff. But in that 5 or 6 years I've been involved with the caucus, it may have even been close to 7 at this point. Time flies. Is in the very beginning, I actually had heard some things like, "Oh, they're racist" or whatever. I think it was around the time of the Sarwar quotes. He already broke my own rule and said his last name.
Oh yeah, man.
It's like I told Nate, I was like, "There's 2 people whose names I don't want to mention on the show ever." And the person I just mentioned is one of them, and the other one we're not going to mention. He's not really a factor anymore. But So I was like, oh, I need to check these guys out. Are they really what people are saying? And I'm like, oh, they sound pretty cool. And then I made contact with Mike, and so I had a bad impression at the very beginning. I got to know people. I got in their, Facebook group, and like, oh yeah, there's no weird stuff going on here. And over the years, I've had seen several people either talk to directly or just kind of seen in my capacity as, seeing what goes on our socials and in the emails that come in and all that, as well as a person, tangentially with people like Zach Hauk, who is involved here in Tennessee, that eventually, like at the beginning, they're not really either they're, and I don't know where exactly Zach came from, but sometimes people are like a little anti Mises Caucus or have a bad impression, or they have been involved with the party for a while and, oh, what is they're not sure. But after they actually get to know the Mises Caucus, both our personality and our culture, but as also the results, so many people, so many real quality people have come and been involved to one degree or another in helping the Mises Caucus, and that just keeps happening, and it very seldom happens the other way, where like a high quality individual. I can't think of a time when. Anyway, I didn't want to get too far into the weeds on that stuff, but just to see somebody who does really great work for the liberty movement to get to know us and
Mhm.
now want to help us in this way is great. So tell just a little bit about, before we get into kind of our main topic tonight, about Good Morning Liberty, when you guys started it, what the format is, stuff like that, and talk about who you do it with and all that stuff.
So I think Charlie and Charlie's been my best friend since high school or
Yeah.
something like that. So it's like 25 years now, something like that. And we played music together. We moved to Nashville together from Illinois, played in different bands, stuff like that. So we've been, not just really good friends, but we've done businesses together and stuff like that this entire time.
Okay.
And so we started Good Morning Liberty back in, I want to say 2019, I believe. Yeah, because we were already rolling pretty good before the COVID stuff. So I would say we started doing it every day in 2019. And so we aim to do a new show every single day of the week,
Hmm.
because we miss sometimes. We say every day of the week when we want to, which is not
Yep.
grammatically correct, but it's a
Yeah.
fun thing to say. And so we do about an hour, almost 5 days a week, every week. That puts us at almost 1,600 shows now.
That's great.
And we do the news, whatever the news is. We try to talk about it from a libertarian perspective. Um, the left and the right sort of just give you their spin on everything, and there's always hidden motivations behind everything that's going on. So we try to pick out whatever the news is and say, like, this is what is really going on right here. This is what he's
Yep.
he's actually saying. And we'll look at a story like, oh, these prices went up and that's bad. But why don't we talk about economics for a minute? So we try
Yep.
to do as much basic economics as we can. We're both, we're not real libertarians, but we consider ourselves to be libertarians. And I would say economics is our number one thing that we care about, next to being anti-war.
Yep.
Also, those kind of go. I think we both lean towards talking more about economics, but these days anti-war is a pretty big one.
Yeah.
I was hoping it wouldn't be, but it is.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, well, really, libertarianism in general, it's like I would prefer not to have to be involved.
Yeah.
I don't want to be talking about what goes on in DC and the Federal Reserve and all that, because most of that stuff I wish didn't exist. Um, and like some people, it's funny. I think there are some libertarians who actually do kind of enjoy politics, and they like that. I always say this, it's like when I don't know if they had Model UN or whatever in your high school, or like the other civics class type clubs, debating, whatever. And like, I don't like that. Like, I want to live in a free and peaceful world, and I want my boys to grow up in a world that was not tremendously much more horrible than the one I grew up in, which is kind of hard to do at this point.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I think it's great that to that so many people, and not just Mises Caucus people, but people who are actual committed libertarians, either big L or small, who are willing to wade through some of this stuff and to try to speak out and to change things. And that's why we came up with Project Decentralized Revolution, which is kind of how our plan to try to make the LP and the Liberty movement more effective. And so we're not going to be talking a lot about the nuts and bolts of that stuff all the time, but like, I think that we are making progress. It's very slow progress, but I'm very happy with the Overton window certainly has shifted. And I think that with what the LP has done, Angela, Mike, the Mises Caucus, like, we've have at least a very little bit to do with that. And I think just think of where we were in 2022, just like 3 years ago, with the COVID stuff and the critical race theory and all that stuff. And things are a little better the last 2 or 3 years.
They're a little better. I think it's good to mention that too. It's good to remember what we just came out of, especially with all the COVID nonsense, the BLM nonsense, all of that. Things got really, really weird there for a little bit.
Yeah.
And they got really bad. I mean, people were getting in trouble for going to the park, or for going surfing. If you had a dying relative, you couldn't be with them and hold their hand.
Yeah.
And stuff got crazy, and we printed a bunch of money, and we caused a bunch of inflation. We had burning and riot and looting across the country. Like, it's better right now than it was a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, for sure. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because we all need to remember that from time to time, no matter how many times we get close to World War III.
Yeah. Which brings us around to kind of our topic tonight is, the big figure in all this is, of course, Donald Trump. And one of the great things, Scott Horton always says this, and I always mention it too. Like, we owe Trump a debt of gratitude for, in 2016, pretty much driving a stake through the heart of both the Clinton and the Bush crime families within the space of like 6 months. He defeated Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton. And, if he never did anything else, like, he deserves credit for that. But like a lot of people, I again, I'm not trying to like libertarian virtue signal here or whatever, but I didn't vote for Trump any other times. I voted libertarian, and then I didn't vote this last time because I was too busy, and I live in Tennessee, and my vote didn't matter. And even if I would have voted for the LP candidate, which I wouldn't have voted for this one, because he was for trans and kids, which is kind of one of the bright lines that I would never cross. He couldn't get on the ballot in Tennessee, and he only needed like 250 signatures. But anyway,
as an independent, it's very difficult as a libertarian, but as an independent, it's a pretty low amount of signatures.
That's right. And a lot of he was on the ballot in a lot of states as either as unlabeled or as independent. And I mean, the ballot access thing is another kettle of fish entirely. But anyway,
you think getting 56,000 signatures is tough to do? I mean, that sounds completely reasonable to me.
Yeah. I've got stories about the similar stuff that happened in Ohio, where I came from, and where I was chair of the LP Central Committee for a few years. During that time, me and 2 other officers of the party sued John Kasich, who was the governor at the time. And so there, I think somewhere still is Aaron Harris versus John Kasich. It's in Tennessee, it's just as bad. Unfortunately, that is such a hurdle, and I think a lot of over the years, so many we've spent a lot of money as a party chasing ballot access, and the the bar gets raised, the bar gets destroyed, it gets changed all the time, and that's one of the tactics the two parties have done. Whichever party controls a particular state. I think in both Ohio and Tennessee for the last 25 years, it's been Republicans that they do this to keep activists and from other challenger parties too, like Green Party. It's disheartening to keep being on that hamster wheel, and people get enthusiastic. They run into that buzzsaw of ballot access, and they can't make progress, and then they go away. So that's why it's there. And so yeah, Tennessee, it's really tough, but as an independent, you can get on with very few signatures. So
Sorry, I threw you off. You were saying
no,
that you
no,
didn't vote for Trump.
yeah, that's fine. I didn't vote for Trump, and my hopes were very low each time, but it's been a roller coaster since this term. Like sometimes it's like I can't believe how great this is, and other days I'm like I cannot believe how stupid this headline is of what's actually going on. So, what do you think about all this? Like, has he learned from the first term? What's different in your eyes?
Um, I think we're looking at a better term than his first term for sure. Just even with his cabinet picks and things like that, you can tell it's a lot better than the first term by far. Having RFK and Tulsi in there, and bringing Elon in to do Doge. And I'll be honest, I did vote for Trump, and it was really, there were probably like, I would say 3 factors that finally pushed me over the edge. I didn't decide I was gonna do it until I think a week, maybe 2 weeks before the election. I finally decided I was gonna do it. Um, and so a few things pushed me over, and one of them was Doge, and it really wasn't, it was Trump, and I was glad that he was going to have Elon do this. It was actually the idea of Elon coming in and getting
Yeah,
to cross a bunch of stuff off the list that I really liked. Having a business guy, richest guy in the world, come in there and knock out all the waste, uh, and waste, fraud, and abuse, which to me is like 95% of the government probably, but we tried to go for a little bit. Um, that's been a little bit disappointing. I do, however, think that they tried to do a lot, and clearly there were a lot of court cases that came in and have prevented them from doing things. I love the idea of firing as many people that work for the federal government as possible.
yep,
So I was fine with that. I thought it was hilarious to watch people freaking out about answering an email and all of that. Those were some fun times, that time between like December, January, February was like the most hopeful I've ever been,
yeah,
for the future of the country, or at least in the last, 7 to 8, 9 years, something like that. That was a fun time for sure. And then, we've officially codified $9.4 billion out of that,
yeah,
and that's not enough. That's about 12 hours worth of expenditures for the government, so they gotta
yeah,
do more than that. Um so the Doge thing ended up being kinda disappointing. The, um as far as the foreign policy goes, um, overall, I was pretty happy with it until, like, the last 2 or 3 weeks. There's a lot of things to clarify, there's a lot of things that I think are, just going to happen regardless, of who gets in there. Like,
yeah,
even the thing with Israel, it seems like no matter who's in there, they're our number one ally. We're gonna defend them. We're gonna send them the 3 point whatever $1 billion um, every year, and that's just just sort of accept that. I've actually thought, for some time now, that war with Iran was inevitable. We got the 7 countries in 5 years or whatever it was, and they've crossed off most of the other things on the list, and so I figured they're going to find a way to get us into it eventually. And so always sort of thought that that was inevitable. I was, however, I was pretty disappointed with the decision to drop bombs in a country that we're not at war with on behalf of another country. I'm sure you felt the same way. I'm happy with the fact that I think, as you know, my thoughts on it. I think he imposed the ceasefire on the two parties via Truth Social, which is good. You know, that's fine. I actually think that that's what happened. I think neither country knew that there was going to be a ceasefire until they saw Truth Social.
Until someone told, like, who is actually on Truth
Yeah,
Social,
sorry, I
except
said
like
that wrong.
whatever the Trump person at each news organization who's like
Mhm.
some intern is tasked with watching Truth Social
Yeah,
so that they can then alert everyone else that, oh, Trump said something. So there's probably like a 45-minute lag between when he actually posts.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, so that was an interesting theory that I heard on your show is that but that seems like something Trump would do, just like
Mhm.
the whole art of the deal. I'm going to bluff people into, yeah,
And
that
he
was,
gets to be the peacemaker,
yeah,
and he is essentially, you know, he wants to be a popular guy. He wants to have a good legacy, and I think, coming in, dropping those bombs, obliterating the nuclear facilities, you know, there's conflicting reports on that, and then, um, calling for a ceasefire or I guess, negotiating a ceasefire uh, in the next couple days after that, it sort of seems like we came in there, we ended the war, we hit the objective that we wanted. The world is a safer place, and he negotiated a ceasefire and uh, give him that give him that darn Nobel Peace Prize already. You
yeah.
know, that's just sort of what it looks like to me.
So I must confess, I'm about 20 18 to 20 hours behind on the news today. I got home from work like 2.5 hours ago and have not I haven't looked at the news all day. So like as of today, like, is the ceasefire holding? Like, what's the up to the minute situation?
It seems to still be holding ever since he dropped an F bomb
Okay.
on both countries. It seems like it's held. I think there's reports that maybe there was a radar station that was bombed, like, right afterwards. I don't know the exact timeline on that,
Yeah.
but from what I've seen and just to like, I've scrolled through the news a little bit, but I also, I have spent no time looking at the news today at all. We could
Yeah.
actually be in a new war right now, and I'm not
Yeah.
convinced I would know about it at the
Yeah.
moment.
I did check antiwar.com for like 2 minutes before uh we linked up, and there doesn't seem to be anything super pressing. Um and Yeah, maybe we should have like taken off work today to catch up on the news.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks like it's so strange because for after the bombing, it's like, oh, is this, yeah, I mean, jokes about World War III, but like it's like two or three steps from something like that actually happening to what seems like to be pretty stable now. But yeah, who knows? But like, let's go through the clip of the.
Okay.
I'll let you set it up, and then for people who haven't seen this, or maybe they've heard the short quote but haven't seen some of the longer stuff. So go ahead and set it up, and we'll play it and do the react thing and all that.
Yeah, so in the clip that I have here, everyone's heard the 59-second, I think it's 59-second clip that was going around that, of course, has the F-bomb at the end of it, and, that's great. I really enjoyed that clip. I did see below that one was posted the entire, his entire interview or whatever you wanna call that when he just walks by,
Yeah,
the cameras and the reporters, and it was 7 minutes long, and so I took that and I cut all of the conversation pertaining to Israel and Iran out of it, and what you really see in this clip, it was super interesting, is that he was definitely way more upset with Israel, uh, and it was if you were super in tune with the news at the time that this ceasefire happened, it was pretty important to kinda be up to date on at that time, and I happened to be watching, like, all the news channels. I sort of got a little addicted to war there for a few days. I don't know if anyone else has, but
yeah.
I
You
started watching the news. you
You
know.
weren't alive, were you, in for the first Gulf War?
Well, I was alive. I was not
Okay.
watching the news. I would have been, 4
Okay.
years old, something like
Because that was like the first time the CNN war, with the, they showed the things of the smart bombs going in the doors and all that stuff. And then of course I did a little bit of that for the second Iraq war. And I think it, I think it's always instructive to remember that not only do the arms uh, contractors and the financiers you know, who buy the stock and all that stuff, but like the media, like they really dig the wars, man.
that.
Like even back, so many of the like the news guys that I grew up with in the 80s, like they all made their bones as like Dan Rather was like a Vietnam War correspondent and stuff like that. So like so many people made their careers covering war, and some of the work they did was good, obviously, but I think it's like the media is like, hey, we haven't had a war for however long, we really need one. So I think
Yeah,
that a lot of people in those boardrooms are really disappointed that Trump's Truth Socialed
I would say
a
so, and
ceasefire here.
it's a good point that they have a lot of incentive to push war, they have, and what's crazy is, Trump watches the news a
Right,
lot,
right.
and, there's a really good case to be made that, people like Mark Levin and some of the other people on Fox have done a decent job getting in his ear over the last couple weeks about Iran and how he's gonna be this great hero if he can get rid of
Yeah,
this Nazi Islamo-Nazi regime, or theo-Nazis, as I call them,
yeah.
and so I think he heard that quite a bit, and, I'm not saying that it's a financial incentive for those guys. They've got something else going on. I don't know what that is. They just like seeing bombs. It makes them feel good. It makes them feel powerful when that happens, I think.
Yeah,
Uh,
more people tune in, and it's at an all-time low of viewership for CNN and stuff like
mhm,
that. Like again, this is an old story to libertarians now, but like Dave Smith, who 8 years ago was a comedian no one has ever heard of, is now beating CNN,
yeah,
and Joe Rogan is beating them by like a factor of 10 to 20 or something on a
yeah,
particular night. And so they really they and again, most of the people in the higher up positions there are, I guess, a lot of them are still baby boomers, and they still just reflexively, you're right, it makes them feel important because this is what I got into the news, because I want to be important, and this is the most important topic. And so and I was actually, we were talking the other day about how a lot of people, even in commentary of just normal people talking about the war, that you may talk to in person or on Twitter, like so many people look at a situation like this and it's like they're playing a game of Risk or a
mhm,
board game or a computer simulation, that they almost have like this relish of like, oh, well, if we do this and we do that, then the problems will be solved. And it's real life is not like that. It's much more unpredictable. And I think in some of the comments that Trump has said over the years, like no other president has said, if you just isolate certain quotes, anti-war stuff the way he has said it, no other president in my lifetime. And that goes back to the first president I remember is Carter. So like
yeah.
nobody's ever said things quite that strong. And so that's why I think it was such a letdown for a lot of um, libertarians and other sort of America First people, that the roller coaster we've been on for the past couple of weeks. So let's get into the clip here.
Yeah, just tell me to stop whenever.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't think so, but I'm not happy that Israel's going out now. There was one rocket that I guess was fired overboard. It was after the time limit and it missed its target. And now Israel's going out. These guys got to calm down. Ridiculous.
wow, right there, stop. So like to actually use the word, like he does that with everybody, but like I had got the impression over the last couple of weeks that maybe he wouldn't talk that way about Israel, and there he is. So like even something like that I think is somewhat significant, but I think it plays into I think you're right. Just the look on his face there, I think he's like, hey, It was right after the time limit, So I think he's just like, that's his signal to them of like, hey, I'm giving you guys, you
Yeah.
know,
It's also
uh,
important to point out that anyone else saying what he says, and this would be woke right, anti-Semitic, whatever, like if Tucker's saying this or
yeah,
anyone else on the anti-war right or libertarians, just simply, if you have Candace Owens saying what he says
yeah,
about Israel in this, it's just another example of her
yeah,
anti-Semitic behavior. And so that's why it was such a crazy clip. It's not that he's saying anything worse than he's said about many other countries that there are. We just don't hear this kind of talk from the president about Israel ever.
yeah,
I don't think I ever have.
yeah,
So it was, yeah. You want me to keep it going?
yeah, yeah. Please
All right.
do. Yeah.
I didn't like plenty of things I saw yesterday. I didn't like the fact that Israel unloaded right after we made the deal. They didn't have to unload. And I didn't like the fact that the retaliation was very strong. But in all fairness, Israel unloaded a lot. And now I hear Israel just.
That was another big one right there that I had to stop at last time I
Yep.
listened to this. Just that little line right there, the retaliation. He's saying the retaliation by Iran was very strong.
Yeah.
But in all fairness, Israel had just unloaded on them. I mean,
Right.
he just I can't think of the right words for it, but he just sort of gave them an excuse for why they unloaded. And in their barrage, I mean, 4 Israeli civilians, I'm pretty sure, got killed.
Yeah.
And he might not know that this time. I'm not saying that, he thought anything about those people getting killed, but the fact that he mentioned that they really unloaded on Israel and said, well, but in all fairness, Israel just done it to them. That's crazy.
Right.
It's not crazy. It's crazy to hear
Yeah.
from the president.
Especially after the whole October 7th thing is like, if anybody, for what is it that for in the current climate, history began on October 7th.
Yeah.
And if any attempt to explain, not excuse, but any attempt to explain what might have motivated someone to do what happened on October 7th is immediately shouted down as you're anti-Semitic, you're obviously in favor of the Islamo-fascists, whatever. And it's the same playbook as it was on 9/11. And that, like, the famous thing of Ron Paul, like, hey, just maybe let's look at a little context here from Mossadegh to the first Gulf War, like all this stuff that we've done. And not to mention the Palestinian thing, like bin Laden gave interviews and wrote things saying exactly all the things why he was doing it. And I think that and obviously that doesn't justify or excuse anything bin Laden did or October 7th or anything like that. But like, what kind of person are you that you don't want to understand the world around you and why dangerous things happen? Right. That's like a basic thing of like, oh, I want to understand why fire came out of the sky and set that tree on fire. Oh, and therefore we discover lightning and figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
But to not want to know why something as bizarre as October 7th would have happened or 2001, to just like, to provide the simple explanation and to not want to know. And of course, the people who provide the simple explanations, they do know, but they want everybody else. They want to shut off the debate. And so I think you're right that the fact that he would say anything that casts Israel in anything but oh, poor Israel, they're fighting, they can do no wrong, basically.
Yeah.
I think it is significant. And hopefully that shows that he's willing to, in private, hopefully in actual talks about things, like the main thing is to stop the missiles and keep things from getting worse and to stop the conflict. And if he's willing to talk like that to them, behind the scenes, I think that's a really good sign.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is. I think the biggest question is like, was this a flash of the truth, how he actually feels, and what we get from politicians, especially presidents, all the time, are the talking points that they're supposed to say for whatever reason. I can't think of a lot of times hearing a president actually saying that Israel did something wrong.
Yeah.
And doesn't mean that's never happened. I'm just saying I can't think of a time off the top of
Yeah.
my head. And so it is good to know if he, if at least he does know that they can do things that are wrong. That's an important first step.
Yeah.
And maybe I don't know how much he normally loses his cool with them, but maybe it's more than we think. I don't know. Let's see.
I just had a thought of like him either in person or on the phone with Netanyahu, and like does he have like a pet name, or does he try to like insult him to his face or something, like, what is he called, well, the little Marco thing, and I forget
Yeah.
what he said about Rand Paul. It's like, believe me, that's nothing to look at. Like I just in my head I'm thinking of things he could say to Netanyahu and how much I would pay to see him just like try to do the negging of Netanyahu would be, and not just Netanyahu, but all these clowns. But go ahead.
Yeah. All right, here's a little more.
Went out because they felt it was violated by one rocket that didn't land anywhere. That's not what we want, I'll tell you. And I'm telling you, I'm not happy about that, Israel, either. Well, we have to have Israel calm down because they went on a mission this morning. I got to get Israel to calm down now.
Did you get to speak with the violent Prime Minister? Did you talk to Prime Minister Netanyahu last
I
night?
speak to everybody.
Are you going to call the Prime Minister?
Both sides not to violate the ceasefire, but reports coming from the region suggest that the sides accuse each other for violating the ceasefire. So
I think they both violated it. I don't think I'm not sure they did it intentionally. They couldn't rein people back. I don't like the fact that Israel went out this morning at all, and I'm going to see if I can stop it. So as soon as I get away from you, I'm going to see if I can stop it. Okay?
This
said that Iran violated the peace agreement, the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to the peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because the one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
I mean, that's my favorite. That's my favorite Trump moment. I'm pretty sure.
The whole thing with Zelensky and the South Africa guy and the Oval Office were both good, but like the look on his face, like you could tell he's just like, okay, I'm done with this, but yeah, I'm gonna give myself a great line to walk off on.
It was a nice walk off for sure.
Yeah, I almost wanted to hear. I should have had you get like the Curb Your Enthusiasm music or something, so like, or like a rim shot or something when he said that, because it was like, it's so, the guy is crazy like a fox, and like if 2 weeks from now this is over, or if 2 weeks from now this is like all out war, like I would be equally like not surprised. Like
I was about to say the exact same thing.
Yeah. It's just, it is maddening, but at least he's funny about it. But like you could tell like the TV experience for him definitely was there. He was just like, yeah, this is going to be the line that we go to commercial.
Yeah. Everyone's going to see this clip for sure. He knew it was time to walk off right then.
So is this the first time that the president, like publicly to the media, intentionally used the F word?
I would guess intentionally, to the media where everyone was going to see. I mean, people can let us know if that's not the case. I don't remember ever seeing that before. In fact, I remember, it's crazy how different politics is now from like when we were, just say like 20 years ago or whatever, or 25 years ago. Like how much of a massive scandal it would have been for that kind of clip to be out.
Yeah.
And it was like a big deal that George W. Bush had smoked pot at one. I think he owned up to smoking a little bit of pot.
Yep.
And that was like almost disqualifying that he had done that in college. And to get all the way to where we are today, where um, you can drop an F-bomb, and Trump, he's got a storied past, I would say. So, back in my day when I was in grade school and high school,
Yep.
no politician ever would have made it through with those kind of credentials, but we're in a different world. It's more real. That's
Yeah.
good. It's not the
Yeah.
fake politician that we've always seen. That's,
Yeah.
the good thing about Trump. Um, most of the time, I feel like he's a fairly open book. There was a little bit of difference, though, with these negotiations where he caught everyone off guard, the media and the American people, and Iran, I guess, most importantly, off guard that, I was surprised about. Do you think that was along that they have been working on that plan for some time, that they were actively deceiving Iran, to try and help Israel get a, surprise attack in on them?
I don't know. Like, I think that my gut tells me, I mean, they were supposedly working on the deal with Iran, and then Israel scotched it by doing this, right? Like, I think Trump likes to make deals, and I don't know if we know exactly. I would like to, should dig in on this, and maybe in the future it might come out. But like, I always, when things like this happen, like Israel deciding to attack, like it's literally something, like I think they bombed Iran once or twice in the past. I know
Mm,
they took out the Iraqi supposed, nuclear thing back in the early 80s or something. And of course, as you know, like Iraq is not, was not, never has been anywhere close to actually developing nuclear weapons that they could actually deliver anywhere but across the street. Like,
mhm.
and the whole like 15-day thing, isn't that like, it's 15 days that they could actually turn the uranium they have into the uranium that could be a bomb. And like, it's the claims that Israel has been making since Netanyahu's first term
Yeah.
as prime minister, which is in the mid 90s, has been literally, they're weeks away, and they've been weeks away since 1994 or 5 or whatever. That's 30 years. And so like, why now? Like, it's like, that's the question for me, is why Israel would do that. And I don't know. Like, my theory, like so many people on our side of things rightly look at, history and just what we know about what the state is. And we see, and also there's people who are kooky and way out there and are anti-Semitic, who say, hey, well, Israel's completely in control of our US government. I don't think that. I think it's like, I think America is like a rich old billionaire, and Israel is like a 20-year-old, movie star wannabe girl. And they're just, it's like this weird symbiotic relationship where they're both using each other. Like, we want Israel because they're a place that we can project power from in the Middle East, and then Israel wants us to protect them and all that stuff. So I think that, if you read the Stephen Walt and what's his name, Mearsheimer article and book about the Israel lobby in American foreign policy, like obviously the people, the neocons and people in our country who do support a neocon foreign policy and the Zionist idea, obviously they have influenced our government and continue to do so. But like, I think that there are American interests who are also using Israel in a weird way, which brings us back around to the question of why now. And
Mhm.
so like, is it something we'll never know of why they decided to do it right now? What's your take on why this happened now?
As far as why now, I've got, um, I've got some, I guess, pretty cynical takes on that.
Let's
My
hear that.
first
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, my first, the random conspiracy. The first thing I said, I think on our the other show, was that, well, I guess we're gonna have to put a little bit of money for Israel in that big beautiful bill. because they got this war going on, and we got to replenish some stockpiles.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is a big bill. It's got to get passed. You'll get lambasted, and he'll start a freaking pack to go against you if you don't want to vote for the bill. And so who knows if they're going to end up tacking something. Now, I don't know if they can do that in this whole reconciliation process. That was just a random thought that entered my mind. Um, I always look at like poll numbers. How are people's poll numbers doing right now?
Yeah.
People like war. They like to watch war.
Yeah.
What's going on? There's some legal troubles for Netanyahu going on in
Yeah.
Israel. In fact, Trump, I believe, posted about that today, that they should stop the trial for Netanyahu that I believe was about to take place. Um, before the October 7th stuff, or they were working towards that. I'm not an expert on whatever the
Yeah.
legal problems are. I just have heard about it plenty of times, and they sort of put all that stuff on hold. Um, they also, I believe he won by 2 votes, um, to stay in power, or if they would have held another election, then it's likely that he wouldn't have been able to stay in power,
Yeah.
Netanyahu. And I think that happened like 2 days before they attacked Iran. And this has been a dream of Israel for a long time. Or hey, maybe they just got super scared about Iran having nukes, and so they decided to keep the world a safer place. They needed to go in there and take care of the nuclear facilities, because it would have been really dangerous for the world. And they're doing us all a favor, and we're just over here whining about it while they're trying to do what's
Yeah.
best for us. And that sounds like the least plausible thing I've heard so
Yeah.
far, but that's the official. It's kind of funny when you say what the official story is after all the other things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's one thing that I think might be changing. Again, to mention Scott Horton again on this, he had a thread on X. I finally called it X. I still usually call it Twitter, but I think it was a few months ago, and I've heard other people say that like the whole Israel having this magical aura around it in terms of American politics might be changing generationally when the baby boomers finally pass from the scene. I think younger Christians are less likely to be wrapped up in
Mhm.
that thing. I know I grew up in a church that wasn't like rabidly pro-Israel, but it was just kind of like, yeah, they're God's people. Hey, the Old Testament, that's them, and we should be nice to them, and we should, and also, different people, their views of biblical prophecy and stuff like that, of like Israel has to come back and all that. And it's like, well, for one thing, like God doesn't ever, as a Christian, like God doesn't. I find it hard to believe that God expects me, unless He audibly tells me to do something that I think is wrong. Like He can accomplish His purposes without me voting for Lindsey Graham, right? Like, like if when Jesus decides to come back, and when I think He will, like again, I don't think it matters whether what appropriations were in the big beautiful bill and stuff like that. And I think that people who didn't, again, the baby boomers who, their parents went through World War II, all this stuff. I think that people 50 and under are just less likely to see that as oh, you can't criticize Israel. So hopefully 20 years from now, this won't be an issue. And maybe we'll look back on this whole incident and Trump and this being a push in that right direction. But like we said before, I could see it going in completely the opposite direction.
I think I think that's a really good point, and younger people are going to be less likely. I was looking at poll numbers where they had polled evangelicals, and there were a very large percentage of them, like 75-80%, like supported Israel. Anytime, I think half of them said that it's because of what's in the Bible specifically.
Yeah.
Which reminds me of that Ted Cruz conversation with Tucker Carlson last week or whenever that was.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of thing is going to be dying out. I don't really mean to say it that way, but that is sort of the case. And we are growing up. Many people are going to be growing up seeing the images of the this Gaza war, whatever it
Yeah.
is you want to call it, and at a time it's very different for our parents, where there might have been a history of a lot of violence committed in that area. You weren't exactly going to see all of it
Yeah.
flow across your news feed all the time,
Yeah.
especially if they were not likely to print anything or do any news stories about something that would make Israel look bad. And so I think that that's gonna change things for a lot of people, and honestly, Israel should be careful about that. That's actually something they need to think about. I don't think this is just baked in, that they're always gonna have this support, and if you're a supporter of Israel who's listening to us right now, bless you for staying around. But you should also want them to consider that, because it's not just always gonna be the case that they're gonna have all the support, and if their support from America dies out, they're screwed.
Yeah.
And, that like they really are. They're essentially like our 51st state that we're protecting over there just on the other side of the world,
Yeah.
and, Canada being the 52nd. I think Israel's actually the 51st.
Yeah.
Um, and, the other thing I think that has, led to so much support for them for so long is probably, World War II, Holocaust,
Yeah.
and people being worried about, the anti-Semitism and all of that. That might be more so people on the left now who really give in to not wanting to get called
Yeah.
anti-Semitic or racist or bigot or whatever it is, who really care about those kind of things. And so I think when you look at older people like Chuck Schumer or whoever in the government, I don't know how religious he is, and I'm not gonna speak for him on that, but, people on the left generally care more about not being called a bigot or doing something that's bigoted, and that's been the case for a long time, that, um, you just get called anti-Semitic for criticizing a government, which is the
Yeah. Yeah.
super weird.
Yeah.
So,
And obviously, from a biblical perspective, there are, again, nuanced views on this that I'm not going to say everyone who disagrees with me is 100% wrong, but like to say that the current secular government of Israel, of secular, mostly agnostic or atheist European people,
yeah,
are the same thing as biblical Israel. And I know there's a lot of things, but like it's not a slam dunk that the biblical things that talk about praying for, and not that wrong, praying for Israel or anybody else, but the things that are often used to, oh, you should protect and promote and
mhm,
defend and stuff like that. It's like I don't. It's not. I'm not convinced, and I think, and as fewer and fewer people are Christian to begin with,
mhm,
that's so. I think for the last 50, 60 years, Israel has really, leaned hard on their alliance with evangelical Christians. And I think they're probably nervous about the fact that that's becoming less and less useful to them for different reasons. And the other thing, kind of jumping to another little concept, is it's hard as libertarians. Like sometimes we find ourselves being on the same side as truly the most objectionable leftists out there
yeah,
who like
yeah,
once in a while the two or three things that some of guys some
uh,
people who are actually communist and things like that will sometimes be good on something, and this is one of those things sometimes, and it's just like explaining to a normie friend like why I have the same view on this as
yeah.
you know AOC or somebody like that is kind of tough to do, but we kind of have to do that. And
Well, you
so
just gotta libertarians are very unique, in that we're very principled all the time, or we try to be principled all the time. We try to be
yeah,
driven by those principles, which is very, very different from, I'm not saying other people don't have principles. I don't see, like, defined principles all that often.
yeah,
But we were talking the other day on the show about the Thomas Massey thing, and I see so many people online, and I spend way too much time on X for sure. Like, wait, I wouldn't even want to look at the numbers. It's really bad how much time I spend on there. Um, and I see so many of like hardcore MAGA Republicans basically calling Massey a Democrat because he ends
Yeah.
up voting with the Democrats on so many things. Like with this war powers resolution, he's with a bunch of Democrats, and with the big beautiful bill, he'd be with a bunch of Democrats. And people just have to realize that there are four different reasons. Just because they're on the same side in one
Yeah.
scenario, oftentimes it's for different reasons. Now, if you're anti-war, it could be the same reason as like AOC. You just don't
Yeah.
like war or whatever. That could be it. And when it comes to things like the war powers resolution, the people that are on the left are just doing it because it's Trump, and they've been looking for any kind of way they could get Trump for as long as they could. And he
Right.
gives people opportunities, and also they will find opportunities or create opportunities as much as they can. And so that's why they would be in favor of stopping him from doing something in Iran. Thomas Massey is doing it because he actually cares about the Constitution. He
Yep.
took an oath to the Constitution. And I'll tell you what, when it comes to Trump, I've been, I was really happy with a lot of stuff there at the beginning. I was disappointed by the war thing, but I am happy that we saw a peace deal and or a current ceasefire
Yeah.
in the hostilities. I hope it holds up for forever, and I hope there's peace in the Middle East. The biggest problem I've actually had, which is actually sort of pushed me in some bad directions as far as it coming to him, and he can he could fix it if he wants to make me happy. This is super happy. Don't start a political action committee to try and oust
Yeah.
like the most constitutional member of Congress. And like libertarians, that if you want to get libertarians to vote for your party in the midterms or in the next election, I don't think you want it on your track record
Yeah.
that you kicked out the
Yeah.
closest thing to a libertarian that there was
Yeah.
in Congress. Like, that's not good.
Yeah.
That's really not going to help with all the libertarians out there. So I will, plead with the president right now in the administration that I think that's going to sour a lot of people, and it's
Yeah.
definitely gotten me upset this week.
Yeah.
Maybe got too upset this week, but I've been pretty upset about it.
Yeah. And again, I think it's, and for any MAGA people who are listening, who like just really look and listen to what Massey is actually saying and what his track record is. Compare that to Ron Paul, and Ron Paul told Ronald Reagan no on some things, and so I'm sure the equivalent back then would have been like, oh, he's anti, and again, Reagan's another, he was like Trump in some ways, did some great things and did some pretty not great things. But yeah, Massey is great. And just think of if a PAC to challenge him, like, what about a PAC to, I know Lindsey Graham is pretty safe in his state, but like, go after guys who actually hate you. If I was Trump, people who never trumped me until I beat, till I actually became president. There are a lot of people who were never Trump or who work for other people and who disagree with a lot of what you're trying to do, but they have an R next to their name. Like, we can make a pretty long list of people like that who should be primaried. And actually, pardon me for 1 second. Angela we're here with the Mises Caucus. We're working on some strategies for the midterm of messaging and stuff like that, that we'll talk about on a future episode. Our plan was actually to have Angela on tonight. It ended up, I think she's traveling today or something like that. And so it just didn't work out. It's hard enough to get our schedules lined up, but I think we're going to stick to Wednesday night for the next 5 or 6 Wednesdays at least. So we'll try to have Angela on to talk about that and about some of her efforts on freeing and getting more pardons for crypto people, and just what we're trying to do with the Bitcoin community and stuff like that. So if those of you, we got several hundred people looking at this live, let us know who you want to have on. I've got a list and we're trying to get people scheduled and things like that. But who do you want to have on? Who do you want to see us interview or on a panel type thing like this? You can email me at Aaron, AARON at MisesCaucus.com. You can message the Twitter page at LP Mises Caucus on there. You could go to Nate on Twitter. I'm on Twitter, but I think I've got it so people can't see me on there. I'm hardly ever on there. I probably need to get back on there. But tell Nate who you want to have on, and we'll try to do that. And if you know somebody, you're a fan of another podcaster or person who you have an in with and can help hook us up with somebody, just let us know. And in the comments on future broadcasts and stuff like that. I meant to mention that at the beginning, that if you want to, I don't know if it's working through Twitter, but if you're on YouTube and logged in, you should be able to put in comments. And again, the software we use, I hadn't used it in several months and some of it's changed. And so tonight was kind of a dry run.
I think it's gone great, by the way. This is our first time talking together on a podcast before, and we haven't used the software in quite some time. I've used it like once in the past, and you haven't used it in the bit. So everything is held together pretty well so far.
Yeah, I think it's good. We're basically, I'm excited about, I know it's been an up and down year for the Mises Caucus and stuff like that, but we still have so many great people doing a lot of hard work in all 50 states and just some really great things happening. So Grand Rapids is coming up, Memorial Day weekend next year. We'll be updating you on all that. If you're not on the Mises Caucus mailing list, go to takehumanaction.com and fill out the little thing there, and you'll get newsletters and updates on who's going to be on the podcast and stuff like that. So thanks for bearing with us. Things will be a little smoother. I just got a new mic stand because I have a new desk in my new house, and it was a little wonky tonight. So we're getting those things straightened out, and we're going to have some good guests on too. And sometimes it might be just me and somebody else. Sometimes I won't be here. But we're going to try to do this as much as we can and have some other people in the mix too. So look forward to it. And I hope everybody's summer's off to a good start. And I hope we hope we can talk about something other than possible World War III next week, I guess. So,
yes, please.
Anything else? Give yourself a plug again, Nate, and any other closing thoughts before we say goodbye.
Biggest like if you want to interact with me on X, and I hate to just plug my other the podcast, but that I just use the Good Morning Liberty X all the time. I don't use my personal one. Good AM Liberty is my account on there. So our account, it's myself and Charlie, but it's me. So if you ever want to talk to me, that's the fastest way to do it. Actually, probably faster than texting most of the time. As far as closing thoughts go, I know we'll talk a little bit more about the whole Iran and Israel thing. I'm glad that the hostilities have stopped right now. I hope that nothing happens to bring anyone back in. I have a bet going with a friend right now on how long it's going to take for a certain country to do a certain kind of thing and to get the ceasefire broken and stuff like that. We'll see.
Okay.
I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I hope Trump has got a good leash on this. And, I've said some negative things about Trump this week, and he earned it. But what my hope is, I'm going to say something positive, is that he still doesn't like war and actually thought that bombing Iran was the fastest way to get us out of it and to make things safer. We can disagree very strongly with that. But what I'm hoping is that he's not just this completely different guy that I ended up voting for, and I'm just gonna fully regret that or anything. I just hope that he thought this was like the only way out of the situation that we were all in. And
Yeah.
you know, I'm glad that so far it's gone okay.
Okay. I got a line that we'll go out on that I know you'll laugh at, but people won't get to see it because I'm going to just, knock us out of here. But next week, Wednesday at 8. And thank you for your attention to this matter.